win. So I don't chase girls, I just chase dreams. Play the same game, but we ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Roddy 2016. Like a phone to die, putting me in charge. I'm a general, from the front I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap never. Going hard as ever, the results match the effort.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank down here in South Florida, where we interview the best and brightest entrepreneurs. We do this in collaboration with the FAU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship every single week, Thursdays at 4 p.m. at Shrimp Tank Boca. And, of course, catch all these episodes, 160 plus of them, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you catch your podcasts these days. Today, we got Dr. Kidwell back into the studio today. What's going on with FAU right now, Dr. Kidwell? I see all these parking spots being filled up. I see, of course, long lines, people getting dropped off, it looks like, to stay on campus. What should we know? What is new at FAU? Looks like we got a dead mic, which is obviously something we run into running podcast shows, but we are back to live.
Okay.
Now we could hear you.
All right. Well, Florida Atlantic University is kicking off the fall semester this weekend. Very excited to be in a PhD seminar, actually, teaching people about advanced management theory for those who want to get a doctor. Well, can't write a prescription, but a PhD, it's sort of similar. But at any rate, we got that going. And exciting news, show our second edition of our workbook, New Venture Launchpad, or boot camp's going to be kicking off in September. But the really cool news is we are being sponsored by the Small Business Development Center at FAU to have this digitally translated into Spanish and have Spanish instructors provide it to get our boot camp, our entrepreneur boot camp, teaching you how to evaluate a business model out into underserved communities. That's step one, and that's very exciting because we're taking this out to the people. And I think it'll be a really neat thing. It's going to be in January probably.
Now, do you have an audible version for people like myself who are horrible readers but we're great listeners?
I think we can work on that for you, a talking book.
Because I like to hear your voice.
Yeah,
right?
well, I'm not going to know. Kevin Cox, the premier author, is going to be the one doing that. He has some instructional videos, though. That's for our trainers who are delivered. So maybe if you make a strong contribution to the Adams Center, we can get you a couple of those videos to take a look at as you're driving back and forth in your car. But
let's talk about something more important.
Yeah.
Revenue. I see this parking lot and I see the ticket folks running around FAU. Is revenue back to FAU with all these tickets that are going to come back? And, the last year and a half, they haven't been able to ticket people.
They're not out there yet.
Oh, next week
but they will be there.
I sense
it. Yeah, I think the thing is you've got a lot of capital projects that are funded by the parking, not only the tickets, but also paying for parking. So that's a big rationale. And it was hurting. I think that was hurting over the last year and a half. But it's not our mission to do parking and do parking tickets. It's just part of the great overall package here at this institution of higher learning.
Well, let's jump into our guests today. We have Alex Rodriguez-Roig. He is the president of the Boys and Girls Club of Miami-Dade. We are excited to learn all about this organization. So, Alex, thank you for joining us here on the Shrimp Tank. To get started, tell us about the organization.
Well, first, thanks for having me. Really looks like going to be a lot of fun here today.
Yes.
Our job is simple. It's really to provide an opportunity for all the kids in the community to be off the streets in a productive environment. We as citizens always want to make sure the kids have opportunities. And with us, it's either in after-school programs, whether it's homework assistance, computer, arts, social skills, literacy, and then we get into the sports, the fitness. Basically, I always tell folks we're kind of like the ice cream shop. You go to an ice cream shop, you might like chocolate, I like vanilla, someone else likes strawberry. And the idea is the more opportunities we provide these kids, the more flavors we provide them, the more interested they're going to be. We all need to be motivated, and we try to motivate these kids to do well and exceed and become productive citizens so they can come wind up here in the university.
And what ages do you work with?
Yeah, we work from school age, which is basically from 5 all the way to 17, and 18 actually as well.
Okay.
So you've been working for this organization for many years, what do you say? Maybe 18 years, 20 years, something like that?
Actually a little more than that, about 22 years.
Okay. Well, what did you start at the organization? How did you work your way up to be president?
Yeah, I started as a volunteer.
Okay.
Actually, I was going to college at the time, started volunteering at the clubs, and they said, "You're here all the time. You're always volunteering, but we've got a part-time job helping some of these kids. And I said, well, if I'm here, I might as well get paid for it, I guess, if they're offering. So I took that at one of the clubs, and when I graduated from FIU, you get that time where you feel like you've been in school forever. And I said, let me take a little bit of a thought process here and break. And at that time, my background's I was a pre-med biology student. And at the time, they offered me a position, full-time position. I had also done my degree in education. So they said, why don't you come over and work with our educational programs? And then from there on, every couple of years or so, there was a different level of opportunity that came. I was able to take it, and in 2003, the director that was there retired, and they said, let's take a chance with this young guy and see what he can do. And there was a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, but hopefully I think I've delivered it at that young time. And the truth is, it's been really fun. The work we do is what keeps me motivated to be there. So in about a minute right now, I just kind of told you stories. A lot of stories in between, but yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
So how has this organization changed over the time period you've been there?
Yes, that's a great question. As you know, our communities change, right? Way back, if you start even at the beginning of the Boys and Girls Clubs, it was more of a, hey, let's play, it was boys clubs. If you go back to the 40s and 50s and even up to the early 80s, and it was all about sports. It was about play ball and football and baseball and all that. And while we still do all the sports, over time the academics became more important. As an organization, our job is to measure the needs of the community. And as we saw the academics needs getting greater, we had to change, and we started increasing the academics. We started the after-school educational programs, our summer camps, our teacher work days, and that's been evolving over the last, I'm going to say, 20 years to get stronger and stronger. I mean, at some point, computers came into play, and it was like the digital divide. So then we got really strong on that one and started putting computers everywhere so that kids had access to it. It's still an issue. We'll still do that, and of course, in COVID hit, and the last 18 months has totally been different as well. The needs have changed as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting process to see the change over the last, in my case, over the last 20 years.
What kind of innovations have you kind of put into place? I mean, with the COVID, you had to be innovative, you online, that kind of thing. But even going back a little bit, what are some of the entrepreneurial things that you've done over the years? Yeah,
when you look at a lot of folks, sometimes they see nonprofit and they see, they think it's the goodness of the heart and whatnot. But at the core of it, to be successful, to have a successful organization, it has to be run like a business. You have to. Every single principle applies, with some exceptions. Because if you look at the way the service we provide, it's not like we're selling widgets. We provide a service, and then how do we pay for that service is coming from a different source. In most businesses, you have something you sell, you make money, and that's how it works. In our case, what we're selling is a program. So we get people to come in, and then the question is, we have these kids in here, how do we pay for that? So that's when we're selling it to donors and institutions and whatnot. So you see that change over time as the accountability. Before, maybe 20, 30 years ago, you would come in and you'd write a check, and here's donation. I see the good work you're doing. The donor has changed, just like in business. The donor has changed. And they're much more elaborate. They're much more knowledgeable. The internet has helped tremendously with that. So when they show up and they know a lot more about the organization and they want to be more involved, it's not write a check and call me next year. It's tell me what you're doing and I want to go see what you're doing and I want to be more involved and can I help with this program? So you see that change has been going on over the last 20 years.
Okay, I'm going to dumb it down a little bit for our audience and even myself, because I have a 6 and 4-year-old and I do not know much about the organization. So, just dumb it down for our listeners. How many facilities do you have down here in South Florida? How many are you managing? How many are in each facility? How big are these facilities? And then how does someone like myself get involved if I want to have my children, do some of these, obviously hobbies that you're doing and different things with sports, for example?
Sure. The typical, we have 5 different facilities. We serve about 8,000 kids here in Miami Dade County. And, usually it depends on the program. The biggest thing, parents will come in, and they'll say, listen, I need my kid to do something. whether it's sports. And they come on the sports side. We have definitely plenty of sports programs right now. As everybody knows, football season is starting to kick off. So you get a lot of folks interested in football. Then we have baseball and tennis and track and all sorts of different programs in any of these different facilities. And they range from the majority of the folks that we're servicing are working families. So the fees that we collect from parents is very small. We never turn our kid away that can't pay. If mom or dad comes to say, listen, I just can't do this, but I need my kid to be in an after-school educational program, they come to we'll figure it out. That's the other side. It's a job to raise money to make these happen. But from the parents' side, you have all these different programs where they can come and get homework assistance in the afternoon, the computers, arts, the social skills, the dance. I mean, basically, the idea is we have so many different programs going on at the same time to keep kids engaged and out of trouble. And those after-school programs, they'll run till 7 o'clock. And then after that, the sports programs kick in. So we're usually at the clubs till 9, 10 o'clock at night on any given day.
And then how many of these facilities are throughout the United States?
Well, throughout the United States, there's about over 4,000 boys and girls clubs. We are the largest youth-serving organization in the country. We've been ranked very high in terms of what the service we provide, and so it's been we've got great leadership at the national level, and it's all. But the strong part is the local level. We're very local based, so we make a lot of decisions, but with a strong board of directors. So yeah, we're doing pretty well all over the country. So it's been exciting.
And then how many people work part of your organization? Like how many people do you have to manage on a daily basis?
Yeah, it depends. If you asked me about a year ago, it'd been a little more.
Yeah.
But right now we have about 95 staff that we have on an annual basis. During the summer, that jumps to about 150. Because of obviously summer programs, and we have a lot of kids all day long. During the summer, we typically have about 1,300 kids just in summer camps. So that jumps. But on a regular basis, around 90 staff between full-time.
And then you also have volunteers on top of that?
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that because all the sports programs are really volunteer focused. Any given year, we'll have 400 to 500 volunteers within the organization.
And then what about when it comes to entrepreneurship? Is there anything dedicated, with entrepreneurship exploding right now? You see a lot of, places just like FAU, they have a whole track for entrepreneurship. So do you do, anything on the entrepreneurial side with students currently?
Yeah, it's interesting. We do different things on and off, but I think one of the biggest things in entrepreneurship, and you can probably vouch for this, is creativity.
Absolutely.
Without creativity, you're not much. You're just one of the other ones, right? And that's one of the things that we push a lot on kids. It's being creative. Take that step forward. Everything you hear to entrepreneurship, right? Take that next step forward. Don't be shy. Be confident. Without self-confidence, you can't get anywhere. You can be the smartest guy in the world, but you're not going to go far if you're not confident.
Agree. We see so many people that just don't have, those sales skills, because you could build something amazing, but you can't get it out into the world if you don't have that communication side. And we see that all the time. People graduating from top 10 universities, but they don't make it as far as the other people that have those great, sales skills. And we're learning with technology that, those skills are very impactful, right? Because right now you go right on Google and you can figure out a lot of stuff on YouTube and other stuff. So sometimes, just having that, execution side, is so valuable, and that confidence to go with it. And, you could take Roland's new book that he co-authored over here and somehow, take some of that knowledge and I'm sure put it into the Boys and Girls Club with some of these classroom settings. Right, Roland?
Oh, I believe so. Absolutely.
Okay.
We're trying to work with FAU High School. In fact, we had 3 out of the 5 finalists in the business plan competition were at FAU High School, taking courses jointly here at FAU. So it's a lot of young minds and very interested in this area. Well, actually, I was a veteran of the Beltsville Boys Club.
Oh, really?
And I played baseball, basketball, and football, but it was the Boys Club at that point. And why did that change? I mean, it's obvious society's changed. Well, what was it? Was that any tension in that process? I know it's before your time, but I'm curious as to whether that...
Sure. No, I've heard some really interesting stories about that. It happened in 1990, and there was an organization called Girls Club. And they were having, apparently they weren't doing too well. And the boys club at the time, many of them all over the country were already serving girls. It was unofficial, but they were serving girls because they saw the need. They said, look, girls are just as much at risk or need services as boys. There's no difference. So then at that time, they took the opportunity to say, hey, let's tie it all in together. and they became the Boys and Girls Clubs. Yes, there was some tension, and I hear some stories about some of the older folks saying, that's not going to work. If you bring girls, the boys will be distracted and won't focus on all these other things we do. It turned out to be not true, and the girls are doing some amazing things, and we have some great partnerships that we do things with girls, and especially with the teens. When we have some of our teen programs that come to the clubs every day, out of high school, they come to us. And that's where we do a lot of when we're talking about, you mentioned, Jay was talking about the entrepreneurship stuff. That's where we get the opportunity to bring in folks and talk to them about different fields. The more we broaden their horizon, the more they'll be able to figure out what they really want to do. So we try to bring entrepreneurs and individuals and business owners and doctors and lawyers and everybody else that we can bring in, artists and all that, so they can try to get experience from that. We learn from our experiences, and that's what we're really big on.
So are the kids coming over after school? They come every day, or do they come twice a week? Is that...
For the most part, they come just about every day. What's interesting is some of the older kids, when you see them that they're not coming every day, and you kind of first glance is, oh, why are they not coming? That's not good. But it's usually because they have something else, like they're doing something at school, or in some cases they have jobs, because some of these kids need to help support their families. So we have some of them going to work, or some of them doing activities and stuff at school. Sometimes they're even doing sports, but for the most part, they're there 4 to 5 days out of the week.
Okay. We talk a lot about social entrepreneurship, and when we're talking about, generally we're talking about revenue, raising revenue, not necessarily through gifts, grants, and those kinds of things, but just revenue-generating programs that address a social mission. Is there anything, what's the kind of the breakdown on that? Is it mainly fees, or do you operate a lemonade stand or a food truck, or what do you do to kind of raise money from the community customers, exchange for service, that kind of thing?
Sure. I mean, there's different ways that we look at that. We don't have necessarily something we sell to get back, but at the same time, most of our revenue comes from individuals, foundations, grants, those type of things, and some of those are very, very competitive. So while might not be you're buying something or trying to buy a business, to some degree, what you're putting together and the plan you're putting together, the business plan you got to put together to present, is just very close. But what we really, when you're talking about what is it that we sell, and what we sell is folks in the community to realize that this is an area where you live, this is a community you live in. Help your community for these folks to be better. It might be your employees. In many cases, it's their employees. It's people that they have services from. A perfect example now during COVID, when you had the first line folks that were working in the supermarkets and whatnot. They're like, where am I going to leave my kids? The school's closed. Where do I leave my kids? It was the Boys and Girls Clubs they left their kids. So because they had a place to leave their kids, they were able to go back to work. We did a study about 3 years ago, and 80% of the parents that come to the club, that kids come to the club, said if it wasn't for the Boys and Girls Clubs, they would not be able to have a job.
So you were expanding the hours during when schools were closed?
We did.
You have an all day?
We pretty much had 7 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon.
Wow.
Yeah, it got expensive.
So what happened during COVID then, when everything was virtual, right? I know, with my kids, my son was in kindergarten, and for the first, 6 to 8 months, it was all virtual. So how did that impact everything?
We had to change. Talking about changing, your mission, and not the mission, but your program. We had to change the program completely. Our normal program from 2 to 7 was kind of out the door, and so we had a program that ran from 7 in the morning to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And during that time, kids would come to us. We'd have
so it still was in person. It did not ever go virtual.
At the beginning, right before the end of the school year, we were virtual for 2 months. But as soon as last summer kicked in, we were in person, limited capacity, of course. But after that, and when school started, we had desks 6 feet apart, the whole thing. It was quite an interesting. We had a 40-page COVID response manual that we had to follow, that we had to come up with.
It's like page 39, paragraph 2. It's like it's so overwhelming at times. Of course,
it was tough.
So this is where parents would bring their kids if they couldn't supervise them at home, I assume, because one of the biggest tragedies, I think, of the whole COVID with the schools is the kids who needed attention to continue on in school and keep making progress. If they didn't have a parent around to help them, so that you kind of fill that void.
Yes, the one thing that I noticed that I've never experienced before was we had employers calling us and saying, "Look, I have great employees, but if they can't come to work, I'm going to have to let them go." And she's a single mom. Can you help open a spot up to have their kids in there. So when you start getting those calls, it becomes not only dire to the individual, the mom or the parent, it becomes dire to the employer as well, that they had to keep their doors open, but didn't want to have to modify that. So it was kind of interesting. It was a big challenge. We were able to do that. We also even opened up a program where we would go into, a lot of companies had conference rooms that they were not using because they were not having meetings. We could go into these conference rooms and set it up as a classroom so that the folks working there can bring their kids to work. We take care of them during the day. And then
If they were actually attending school, though, on these computers.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we would take care of that in your workplace because we were out of space.
Right, right.
We, all the parameters, we do it in your
Did
workplace.
you get any publicity on that? That's fantastic. I
Yeah.
never heard about that.
There's so many like empty spaces everywhere down here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there was. Luckily, it was short-lived because in October, the school district allowed limited number of kids to go back to school. So that helped alleviate some of the issues going on at the time. But still, our programs were until the end of the school year. We still had kids in the clubs all day long.
So do you waive the cost that example that you said where someone needs to go to work and they really can't afford some of these services? How does that work? Do you guys have scenarios where you just waive the cost?
We do. We waive the cost, and that's when we go to folks like yourself and we say, hey,
Yeah.
listen, this is what we're doing. Help us out.
Oh, that's great.
You know.
So let's go backwards for a moment. You said earlier in the podcast, how stressful it was in 2003, with the amount of pressure for someone young taking over and becoming president. Can you go into detail what it was like those first 5 years, going in and really figuring it out, right? That's what happens. Most people that take C-level positions over work very late hours and they maneuver, through the business, right? They figure it out. They don't know how, but they take the opportunity and they run with it. We see that all the time here on the Shrimp Tank. So kind of go into detail about the pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's one of those, like, people say, you know what, I love my job and there's not a day that I don't look forward to going to work. And I always tell them, you're lying. There's days you don't want to go to work.
I know. It's not social media. Come on. We all break eventually.
Right. I don't want to go. But the difference is you get up and go.
Yeah.
And you get up and say, I got to get this done. And I've been charged with the task. And you got two things. Either you fail or you succeed. And I think that's where, it's that grit that comes in. And you got to say, okay, I've got to do this. And I've got to figure it out. And, you've got to check the ego and say, look, you got to get your sleeves up and you're going to fail and you're going to make mistakes. And you're just got to keep getting up and doing it. But there's challenges.
I agree. We see that so often on the show. And that's the successful folks is they just keep going. Right, it's those mornings where you do not want to wake up, you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to jump in the pool, whatever it might be when you get your workout, but you got to do it, right? You just got to wake up, even when you need a coffee, but you got to keep shooting emails off, taking phone calls. I mean, I can't believe how many Zoom calls I've done, and I'm like, I can't do another one right now, and I'm like screaming at the monitor, but somehow you put it together and you get through that day, and then you're happy with yourself, on the weekend, right? And I agree with you. Social media has made it sound so easy. All these entrepreneurs or C-level executives running businesses, because it seems like they're always so happy, right? But that's BS, right? Yeah. We just hope to have, more happy days than not happy days, throughout, 365 days, working, right? Because we're never not working, right? Even on the weekends, I'm assuming you're working, right?
You're
like
working.
Emails fly in and you're like, I got to answer them.
You're thinking,
yeah.
you're figuring it out, yeah.
We're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to jump to our Hot or Not segment of the show.
Step into our state-of-the-art innovation lab and create your digital future. Oz uses cutting-edge technology and 22 years of industry knowledge to enhance customer experience through digital innovation in a variety of expertise. Oz is a leading global consulting company whose services and solutions are trusted by startup, midsize, and even Fortune 500 companies. Get to know more about Oz's Salus, a mobile solution bringing us back to max capacity, and their latest solution, Rainmaker, saving insurance companies years of work. To learn more about Oz and their exciting technologies, visit followoz.com. That's FOLLOWOZ.com.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Shrimp Tank Podcast. As a reminder, you catch 160 plus episodes at shrimptankpodcast.com, wherever you catch your podcast today is on Spotify, our radio, Apple Podcasts. We are everywhere. So, Alex, on this segment of the show, it's called Hot or Not. We're going to bring up a topic, and then you're going to go into detail of why you believe it's hot or not, with the current business environment. So I'm going to let Dr. Kidwell kick off our hot or not segment of this show.
Well, social media as it applies to the Boys and Girls Club, is that hot or not?
Yeah, it's hot, definitely. It's a lot of parents are on that. A lot of donors look at that. That's almost become more as important as your website. So you have to have a strong presence on there, and you've got to keep it active.
What is your hottest social media for the Boys and Girls Club?
It's most like Facebook or Instagram are the two biggest ones, but probably Facebook is the one that people look at the most.
So piggyback, running ads, right? You can run ads for anything today and target. Of course, nonprofits are less known for running ads on there, but technically, a lot of donors will see the ad and then, hey, I should donate to your organization, or it's just to get, people in your community, to have awareness, and there's a cost to come with it. It's general advertising. So what about ads, hot or not?
It's hot with events and whatnot. When you're trying to get donors to get involved, absolutely, it's definitely hot in that case. You can definitely get some folks to learn about what you're doing and what events is. Hey, Jason's going to be on here. I want to go see him, and they want to get involved.
Now, are you allowed to just do any ad you want, or then going up the food chain? Does the Boys and Girls Club at the top, make calls on that? We're like, no, you can't do it. And do you have other separate pages? Is it just one at the top, or locally they have different social media?
Each organization has their own. So whatever we do in Miami, that's ours, and we control that. If I mess that up, it's on me.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
I got to answer for that. Yeah, absolutely.
You put out one wrong post these days. And,
yeah, absolutely.
You got a PR company in your corner, thankfully, and you got to put out a fire. But as I say, bad news, sometimes good news.
Yep.
How about the business plans? You mentioned business plans earlier. Are they hot or not, and how do you use them, if you do?
In our case, it's hot in the sense that we use strategic plans, but you don't do them more than 2 years nowadays.
Okay.
World changes so fast. 2 years is the max we do.
And what do you kind of try to target there?
There we target what's the next, what are you doing to continue your growth? How are you going to, continue to grow? Population you're serving, are you changing anything or you're not? And then your donor base and your board base, are you changing that as well? Or what's next?
And I assume it includes programs, new programs.
Correct.
What is the hottest program you started in the last 5 years?
Wow, that's a good question. You have so many going through my head. But I think in the last 5 years, the strength that we've put on and the dedication we put on the teen centers. We used to have teen programs, but they weren't at having dedicated space. Teens, they need their own population. They need their own location. So we have teen centers at each one of our clubs, and those have grown tremendously. So teens need a lot of places to be at so they don't get in trouble.
Unless they live in Laramie, Wyoming, like I used to, it was no problem there. No mall, no, But I understand here.
But then
Miami,
you get bored. You would get bored.
Yeah, they did get bored.
Yeah, see, with us, they wouldn't get bored.
What are the hot ways to partner with your organization you have seen, and what are not hot ways, right, or collaborations, right? I think you get a lot of people reach out. They just want to throw that logo on their website, right? And they're like, ooh, look, I'm part of this organization. I'm donating. But people do it the wrong way and the right way, right? So kind of tell us something so our audience, can get a tip or a trick, right?
Sure. I mean, the right way is the first approach. It's not that I want to get your logo on the thing, on our website or show it or whatnot. The right way is I want to help the community. And you can kind of see that. Once you say I want to help the community, you want to be part of that. Because honestly, the bang for the buck in terms of saying I put your logo or I'm giving you a donation and you want your logo on my thing, you're not going to get it. You're better off spending on advertising. But if you're coming in for the right reasons, then that'll grow, and grow. We always look for long-term partners, not short-term partners. So when you come in that approach, it's definitely going to be hot.
Yeah, too often, unfortunately, people have bad morals, right? They start doing good in business, and then they start going after a lot of organizations the wrong way. Yeah. And, unfortunately, over time, people start seeing through that, right? Yeah. I'm sure you do. The bad apples, unfortunately.
Those are usually short-lived.
Yes, they are. Absolutely. In business, too.
Yeah,
right over time, people realize, hey, they're not as good as what they're talking about on social media. The truth comes out, that they're corrupt, in a way of just being bad business owners. Yeah. Right?
Are the sports programs still the hottest thing you do? And what percentage of that is the total?
Yeah, they still are. And especially now during COVID, where kids were cooped up so long, we've had over the last 6 months such a huge outpouring of people saying, I need my kids to get active. I cannot have them at home anymore. So yeah, it's been a real hot topic. And of course, because it's outdoors, especially when you're looking at South Florida, we got year-round weather. So that's become a real hot one, and it's getting better and better and better. So yeah, that's a strong one.
And that's been coming back over the last year. But would that be true going back over since you've been with the organization?
Sports in South Florida always been strong.
Okay.
I mean, this is it's sports.
Right.
Everybody loves football, baseball, and basketball here. So yeah.
Which is the hottest sport down here?
What about soccer?
Soccer. Yeah, but Miami's still a football town.
Okay.
Yeah, Miami's still football.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One day soccer, right?
Maybe.
Are you getting more immigrants, people who come to the country as participants in this? What would you say? Is that a hot area? Are they turning on to the Boys and Girls Club? Are they finding it? How do you get them involved?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you know, we've been around so long, so it's a lot of word of mouth. But when you have folks coming new to this country, their first thing is, I've got to get to work. And then the next question is, where do I leave my kids? So a place like the Boys and Girls Clubs, or whenever schools close, they leave their kids with us, makes complete sense to them.
Mm-hmm. And you're not running a daycare, are you? Okay.
No daycares. No daycares. No youth recreational and social programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There's been a rush of tech companies, coming to South Florida, right? The mayor even put a billboard up in California, and we're starting to see all these tech folks coming down, venture capitalists, and I got to ask, hot or not, with all that happening for your organization, what have you seen?
Definitely hot.
Okay, explain kind of more detail why.
Definitely. Yeah. There's so many opportunities when that comes in, not only for business, but for organizations like us. There's so many more opportunities when you see these tech companies that they want to come in here and build Miami. And even for any entrepreneurs, you want to keep building Miami. Well, you need to have the staffing, the people to be able to fill those jobs. Well, let's start with the kids. So let's come to the clubs, let's set up programs with these tech companies that they can come here and start building these kids right from the beginning so that they don't go away, or that you don't have to bring folks from the outside. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity. It hasn't been touched completely yet. Jason, there's still a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's talk a little bit about tech, and not really hot or not, but what is the coolest technology that you've implemented, that's worth every dollar, last 5 years, let's say, because tech changes so quick. And what did you make a mistake on? I mean, I see this all the time. People put tech into their organization, they got to rip it out, and they're like, that failed miserably. So go through both. All
right, so you're going to ask me one that I'm going to have to talk and I'm going to be embarrassed about, but I'll answer it. One of the biggest things, it's a plus and minus, is our donor tracking software. But you go way back when, and it was like, you had a spreadsheet with a bunch of names on there. And I said, I think he did that. So we've gotten much more sophisticated, and there's many great softwares out there. Yeah. So we thought, when you talk about a bad side, we took a software on. It was very expensive, very robust, way too big for us. And it was like, what is this? I felt like we were launching a rocket to the moon when we were using it. And about a few years into it, we said, okay, we got to dump this. And so we had to dump it and go with a different kind of software.
Yeah, sometimes you need just something more basic at the end
of the day. That's exactly what it was.
You get sold on all these amazing features, and it's just like our iPhones, right? Like we use like 5% of our iPhones. We don't use the 95%. Same thing with CRMs, right? All these client relationship management softwares, they have so many bells and whistles, but the average user, there's not enough time in a day to use them all, right?
And that's absolutely what happened to us. There was it sounded great at first, We had the car salesman gave us a great sale. 2 years into it, it's like, wow, we don't even know how to drive a stick shift.
And tell us a good thing, like what you guys implemented that's really working when it comes to tech.
When it comes to tech, we got a couple things. One is the system that we use on the other end, which is for our membership for our kids. We have all this information. We had a click of a button. If there's an emergency, we can tell who's in the building, where they're at, and we can lock it down and fire drills, all these kind of things that allows us to do. So that's probably a great safety feature that we have at all the clubs.
Yes, which is extremely important. Absolutely. We're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to jump to our future focus segment of the show.
Are you having a hard time finding good people? The key to successfully finding top quality candidates is to expand your candidate pool. That's exactly what a virtual hiring event powered by Premier Virtual will do for you. Over 2,500 virtual hiring events later, more than 25,000 companies have connected with over 250,000 job seekers. These events are much more than a resume. Virtual hiring events give your recruiters the ability to meet and pre-screen candidates and decide if they're a good fit. The efficiency and effectiveness of virtual hiring events has reduced time to hire from an average of 30 days to just over 7 days. Premier Virtual has received a top rating for ease of use and customer support on software review sites like G2 and Capterra. We've also been selected a top 100 company to work for in Florida by Florida Trend magazine. Meet our veteran-owned Delray Beach-based company by visiting premiervirtual.com and schedule a free demo to see how you could host your first virtual hiring event within 24 hours. premiervirtual.com. It's time to take your hiring virtual.
Okay, Alex, we're back. And in the shrimp tank. And we're going to talk about future focus based on some of the things Premier Virtual was talking about in our little aside there, that little commercial. Tell us about how you go about hiring new people. What are some of the challenges that you have in recruiting those people and the process? What are some things that you can talk about?
Sure. Obviously, for us, the hiring is key because we deal with kids. So safety is number one. Obviously, background checks, reference checks, all those type of things. In-depth training at the beginning to make sure that they understand what they're supposed to be doing. It also gives them the ability to have a real start with us. So the more you know about your job, the more you know what you're supposed to be doing, the better likely you're going to do your job. So that's one of the things that we're very key on. That some of these challenges nowadays is obviously the staffing. It's been a challenge the last 4 or 5 months to get the number of folks on there. But we have we have good people on board. So we always word of mouth is always the best reference for us. Has been.
So that's your main recruiting tool is word of mouth. Employees recommending other employees.
That's how we've always gotten our best folks, even to today. I mean, there's social media and technology and all that, but honestly, that's the way we've gotten our best folks until today. The work we do is it's not like we have sales associates or anything like that. It's people that you have to, you can pay somebody $1 million. If they can't deal with kids, they're not going to last.
Right. But I assume you're not paying people $1 million, and it's probably very...
it's quite the opposite.
A tough situation.
Yeah.
You've got your best people that way, but do you use any other recruiting tools to bring others in to find employees, or is it mainly word of mouth?
The main part is word of mouth. We do obviously have some places we post in universities and whatnot,
right.
And we do quite a bit of that. But many times the majority I'm going to say is really word of mouth. But we do get some good folks from the universities, and sometimes in summer we get a lot of teachers from the school system. That are off during the summer, they work with us.
How do you, I guess many volunteers become employees like you did. Is that still true?
True, yes.
Okay. What's the biggest challenge in managing volunteers?
Well, the biggest challenge in managing volunteers is that they're volunteers. So you can't really tell them, hey, I need you here at 3 o'clock, and they show up at 3:45. Oh, yeah, I got caught up, and you can't fire them. So that's the biggest challenge is you got to work with that. So you always have to have a plan B. With volunteers, you must have a plan B.
Okay.
But for the most part, they're pretty good and loyal. But they and once they're there, they're dedicated, and they do some amazing stuff. We have volunteers that have been with us 15 years. Their kids have grown there. Especially on the sports side, they've played sports. Their kids now are grown and gone, and they're still there coaching and helping us out because they just love doing it.
Do you rather hire young professionals and mold them, or people with experience based on their resume? What have you seen as the best?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's almost like a catch, Yeah. I can see that. It's like a catch.
Curveball.
Yeah. You know what? You hire the best one.
Yep.
And sometimes it's the young one, and sometimes you do take a chance on the young one that they say, but you can just, after years of doing this and interviewing, you kind of start to get a feel a little bit. So while there's always a series of questions you ask, and, you look at the resumes and the references, and sometimes you get some people that look amazing. And, 2 months into it, you're like, wow.
Because they left 4 jobs off their resume and they hopped around a lot. You always get the hoppers. Right?
Yes, that's a red flag all the time. But yeah.
Yes. How do you deal with, people that show up late, right, and typically always have an excuse?
Yeah, that's
but they're good people.
Yeah, that's the ones that push your buttons, man. They drive you a little crazy. Yeah, the one that's when you have the good people, it's. Especially the ones that have been there a long time, and they start to something happens personally. They have some issue usually. It's usually some kind of personal issue why they're doing this all of a sudden. So I think it becomes more of a coaching position. Yeah. Where at first it's let's talk about it, let's coach through it, and hopefully that rectifies it. If not, then you got something else you got to talk about.
And then how do you handle just saying it's the right time to kind of go our separate ways? Right. That's difficult as a leader, and a lot of leaders can't do it, and they let someone get away with it over and over and over again, and then one day they look back, I should have cut it 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, it is very common. It's honestly, personally, it's probably the part I hate the most about the job is having to do that, because it's just not comfortable. But at sometimes you got to bite the bullet kind of thing, and you just gotta say, look, I think this is not the perfect place for us anymore. We're moving one direction and you're going another. And that's better. Let's cut it off here.
What kind of support do you get from the national organization in terms of hiring and those kinds of things? Do they refer people? Do they just have standards? How does that work? What's your relationship, not only in hiring, but just in general?
Yeah, no, with the national, we're very lucky in that sense. We probably have the best national team of any national type of organization. They have a whole team that really focuses on staff development. So when you're looking at how do you continue the education process to a lot of these staffs, they have programs from the folks that work part-time to folks at executive levels. There's different, we have partnerships with different universities. Honestly, because of that, I had the opportunity to go to the Harvard Business School because the Boys and Girls Clubs spend a week there, and it was a great learning experience. And a bunch of different opportunities like that. I've been, I don't know, to like 3 or 4 different universities because of that. And on the hiring side, they provide resources to figure out, identify the individual. When you sit and interview somebody, the other 15, 20, 30 minutes at the most, you get a snapshot. The rest, we'll figure it out later.
Sure.
What about virtual hiring, right? You see all these new companies popping up, and they're Zoom rooms, right? You go in, and there's no different than a regular conference center where there's 100 different booths. Well, there's 100 booths online, and you can click the booths, and that's what Premier Virtuals is like. And then you go in, start chatting with them. If they think that there's a fit, they pop you in Zoom, and you talk with them right on the spot, right? But, no one has to run to a Marriott, in a big conference center or a big university, figure out parking, get parking tickets, right? But have you tried some of these virtual ones that have popped up in the last 2 years?
Have not yet, but I've heard a lot about it. And, it's a really neat opportunity because in a short period of time, you can see a lot of different people that you might find a right fit. So it's like you're casting a big net really quickly without taking too much time. So I think it's very beneficial.
Yep. And you could see them, right? There's something important when you could see them and see their expressions. Are they into it? Are they not into it? Or a phone call, sometimes you can't really tell, right?
Yeah. Can they be late to those things? Because if they're late, that's one of my pet peeves. You're late to an interview, it's over.
Well, those are just like kind of you log in. It's kind of like a conference center.
So
if it's open for 2 hours, you go whenever you want. This is just in a virtual, conference center, so people pop their head in different rooms. But it also helps because the candidates won't waste their time, right? If they're like, I read, what the description is, they're not interested. See, what happens a lot of times with these Indeeds of the world is, people submit their resume to 500 different places and just say, well, when one of them calls me back, I'll figure it out at that point. But then they get calls out of the blue, and then they're really not ready, and then they're not really interested, but they take your interview, right? With this, they're interested. They went into your room, they read the description. So when you do pop them on video, they're ready to buy, right? And I think that comes back to sales and marketing with any organization. When we look at, I'm in the financial service business, is people would have to be sold life insurance as an example, right? But today, there's blog articles. You could literally go onto my website, read articles, and you're a buyer. You fill out your form online, and when I call you, you already read my bio. You already read, the exact scenario that you want. Let's say like term life insurance for 20 years, and you're a buyer. So the conversation's so natural. So I think the reason why Premier Virtual is one of the fastest growing companies for that reason is the people coming in the room are buyers. In that case, not buyers, but they want to be employed by that organization. So, we will definitely connect you to Premier Virtual after the show. For everyone listening, we're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from one of our sponsors.
Are you ready to make your indelible impression? DeRay & Company is an award-winning, full-service public relations and marketing agency with offices in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Aspen, Colorado. With practice areas in business, real estate, cannabis, nonprofit, legal, and lifestyle, DeRay & Company is fully equipped to help clients reach their goals with strategies that are on point. Whether it's public relations, social media, digital marketing, content development, or other services, DeRay & Company delivers results for business owners that address their business goals and reach their targeted audience. To learn more about DeRay & Company and our services, visit DeRayandCompany.com. DUREEANDCOMPANY.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our last segment of the show called Plead the Fifth. Alex, on this segment, we're going to ask you some questions. If you do not want to answer them, you say, I plead the fifth. But you can only say that one time. Jeez. If you say it twice, what ends up happening is Roland goes down and puts a boot on your car. Jeez. And you can't get out of FAU. You got to stay here and read his book. Is that correct, Roland? You got to... He's got, and when
most
when
of what you say, no, it is not correct.
That's not true. He doesn't have to when the book
true.
is over, he'll give you a test, and then you can go and he'll take the boot off your car.
No,
that's the new rules. I think that we should.
Do you think?
We should.
Okay,
yep, we should. So to kick things off, our last sponsor was Duray and Company. So you guys work with the Duray and Company. So a little shout out. What are the benefits of working with a PR firm?
Well, you get expertise. Most organizations like that don't have that expertise on staff. And if we were going to have it on staff, it'd cost us a heck of a lot more. So, you get folks that are in that field, that's what they do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you get the expertise and you get the best, latest that's going on. So it helps tremendously get the word out.
Yes, absolutely. And it's awesome that they connected you to us, of course,
absolutely.
Which is why they're a great partner.
They are. They're fantastic.
Okay, now to the hard questions, right? So I'm going to let Roland kick things off.
He lets me do that the whole show today, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell us about a story about a person that you had to fire, and what happened. How did you deal with it, and what was the outcome?
Wow, that's an interesting one. Well, we have folks that work, and then we have folks that don't work, but then you have the folks that look like they're working, but then they're not working. And those are the ones that you got to identify. So we had an individual once that was kind of it was one of those, and she always looked busy. And I was like, well, she looks like she's busy. I said, what is she doing? No, working on this. And she'd always tell you, working on this, working on that. And then after a while, you start to pick up on, wait a second, you're not really doing much. You're passing things down and doing all sorts of stuff. Long story short, when time came to tell her, hey, listen, I think it's time to go. And it was not again, going back to, it's not a comfortable meeting. We realized it was, she wasn't going to work out. And she looked at me straight in the eyes and she said, you need to go soul searching. And she said, you need to go back to church. And she told me all sorts of stuff. And I said, I do go to church. But, at that point, that's when, they're already down. So don't hit them again. I said, look, yeah, you're right. Okay, bye.
No point of fighting.
How long did that process play out in terms of how long was she there?
She was there, I'm going to say, about a year.
Okay.
About a year. First when you get somebody on board, I always call it the honeymoon period. Right. First couple months, everybody's great. And then it starts to show real colors. You start to, they're going to, one of those people show up late or not do their work or whatnot. And then you start to figure it out. And it takes a few months to figure that out.
Well, this one knew impression management.
And it's hard because then you start micromanaging them and you don't want to micromanage them. And then you're second guessing yourself. Like, are they really doing work? Are they not? But you can't see every email. But I've experienced that where you give some people tasks and you're like, wait, 4 hours have gone by and there's only 4 emails that you had to respond to. It couldn't take 4 hours to go through those 4 emails and certain messages on social media. So I've seen that running my organization, and it's hard because you can't pinpoint it sometimes, and they show up on time and they're really nice, right? It's different when they're mean, right?
And then you try to say, okay, let's work with them. Let's coach them through. And let's see, you always kind of, at least most of us, wind up giving them the benefit of the doubt. You kind of work through them, and that, you realize at some point, yay or nay. Okay,
let's talk about your pet peeve. You said your pet peeve is when people show up late for interviews, and that is my pet peeve. I can't tell you how many times we have an interview, and there's always an excuse. Oh, sorry, I hit 95 traffic. It's like, there's traffic always on 95. I used to live in New York, so it was like, the same excuse in New York. They're like, it's always there. Like, figure it out. Show up 30 minutes early. Be prepared. Show up with your resume. But tell us a story about, someone showed up late. It really drove you nuts what they did.
Yeah, showing up late to interviews is definitely the one that, one of those. I think the worst one for me is clock watchers. It's 4:59. They're packed, ready to go and out the door. It's like, how do you manage that you have your work cut out for the day and you can end it right at 4:59? And I'm not saying to stay till 6, but come on, really, 4:59? You're ready to go? So that's the one where I start looking at it and say, it's 5 o'clock every single day, out the door. I can't even ask them a question. Hey, did you do it? They're gone.
So how do you transition someone from going from 4:59 to saying getting the job done, you leave when it's done, right? I'm used to that mentality in New York. New York has that, you leave at 6:30 when the job is done, not at 4:59. And I do find, since moving to South Florida 4 years ago, it's hard to train that. It's hard to transition people to get out of that mindset that it's not just a job that ends at 4:59. It's a career that goes till 6:30 to complete the task at hand to make things perfect, right?
Yes, and you know, for me, it's been more of a conversation because tend to be a very easygoing kind of personality. So you know what? There's sometimes you're going to come in at 2:00 and say, "Listen, I forgot I had a dentist appointment. I have to take my kid," and I'll just say, "Just go, go." But then on the flip side to that is, you know, don't be 4:59 every day. There's sometimes you're going to have to stay a little bit later. So you can use that as a tool to say, hey, listen, you know, I know sometimes you got to go early because things happen. We all have a life, you know, outside of work. But on the other side is, you know what, 4:59 is not cutting it. You know, you need to finish your job, finish that task, and then go. It might be 5:15, it might be 5:20, it might be 5:10, or 6
what
o'clock.
if you finish early at 4:30? Why can't you leave then?
Well, there's something for tomorrow.
I think you might have a little bit of give and take there. If you said, okay, you're done at 4:00, go ahead. It's called the results-only work environment.
Yeah, that doesn't happen with
Get
us.
the results done. That doesn't happen. Okay, all right. Okay. Jason's giving you a few softballs over here.
Oh,
Let me
God.
give-
I'm going to get the boot here.
I'm just setting him up, technically. He doesn't realize it.
You have the PR company. I'm sorry, I got away from my microphone. You have the PR company. What's the biggest scandal that they helped you deal with?
Well, I can't tell you that.
Are you going to plead the fifth?
I think I'm going to have to plead the fifth on that one.
That was a bad scandal.
Wow. I guess it must have been a bad scandal.
No, it wasn't. No. You know, honestly, I'll be honest. I'll answer the question. Knock on wood, we haven't had any serious scandals since, you know, for even before myself. You know, the key to everything is supervision. Yeah, it could happen, but we haven't had real significant scandals in 20 years. We've had some issues here. I remember. I'll give you an example. We had one year a reporter showed up at one of our clubs. She got a call from somebody, or maybe it could have been some parent or somebody, and said these kids are in their sweltering heat in the gym. The air condition was broken in the gym. It was summer. The air condition had just broken about a week and a half before that. Mind you, we had installed air conditioning about 6 months before that. So before that, it's always been hot. I mean, you know, I'm not to mention your age, but a lot of those gyms did not have air conditioning until recently. So it was kind of
never noticed when you were young, though.
No, you never did. No, until you put it in there, and then you can't live without it. So in this case, we had the reporter. She showed up, and she made a big stink about it. And you know, it actually led to something because we were having an issue with the AC. It led to a company seeing that story on TV and saying, "I'm going to help them out." And they came in and helped us out and actually put new air conditioners that replaced the ones that had just burnt, which were only 6 months old.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Okay, what was the biggest donation you've ever received?
Amount-wise?
Yeah, like 5 million, 20 million, 336,000. I don't know.
20 would be good, but 5. It's been
5 million?
5 million has been the largest.
Was it from a company, an individual?
A foundation, a family foundation. Family foundation.
Nice.
Did you do an endowment with that, or did you spend it on a capital project?
Actually, it was half and half. Half of it went to endowment, and the other half was for a capital project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you buy your locations? Do you rent them? How do you had 5 locations. Mm-hmm. How does that evolve? How does that happen?
Yeah, there's a couple that we own. The others is really partnership because, I mean, we're in South Florida. Land, for the type of land, the size of land we need is very expensive. And we'd spend all our money on land if it's even available, because we always want to be in areas where there's a lot of families and a lot of areas, you know, there's high density. So that land is almost impossible to buy. So it's usually partnerships. Nowadays, it would be partnerships with local government, as usually is the case, parks, departments, those type of things that will enhance their locations.
I see.
Okay. Tell us about the future of you. Where do you see yourself expanding to? You see taking over the entire organization one day? What's the future look like?
I hope to be the king of my homes one day.
That's a good goal.
No. Oh God, I'm gonna hurry. I'm gonna hear when I get home, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, you know, we have so many goals at the club. You know, some of the clubs, as I mentioned, we've been around for a long time, since the 40s. So there's 2 locations that were built in the 40s, and other ones early 50s. Those buildings are really old. It's time for them to go.
Okay.
So the idea is we're in capital campaigns to raise a lot of money to really build it out and set the club in those particular locations for the next 30, 40, 50 years, and continue to expand and serve more kids. Look, I said, we have a pretty significant good footprint here, but it's 8,000 kids, and there's a heck of a lot more kids and a heck of a lot more people to help in this community. So we're going to continue to grow and provide more services in different areas.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming out here to the Shrimp Tank today. I think our audience learned a lot, tons of tips and tricks. I know I definitely have. If they want to reach out to your organization or even yourself, is there a best method, like on your LinkedIn account, for example? Are you on there? Are you not a LinkedIn user or Instagram user? What's the best route for both scenarios?
Yeah, we are on I'm on LinkedIn. We're our Boys and Girls Clubs on Facebook, on Instagram. They can always look at our website. I first and foremost, let me thank you for the opportunity to come out here and share some words with you, here and kind of talk about the organization and the work we do. Sometimes, the work kind of we do kind of takes a sidestep. A lot of times, it's not cute or sexy or whatnot. So it's kind of good to be able to come out here and share this information. But yeah, we're always looking for folks to get involved, whether it's through donations, of course, or volunteering, or any ideas that they have. We have people sometimes call us, say, I live in this community, it'd be great as a Boys and Girls Clubs. And we can talk about it, we can try to figure it out, and we're working on some of those right now. So yeah, any way that we can help the community, and you can help us help the communities.
Yes, we always have creative ideas here on the Shrimp Tank, and our guests, of course, will see this episode, and a lot of them likely will reach out to you with some ideas as well. Well, thank you.
Fantastic.
For joining us on the Shrimp Tank. For everyone listening, we will be back next Thursday at 4 p.m. We have Tint World on. It will be an exciting episode, one of the largest franchises ever created, I found out. So, see you next week. Take care, everybody.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it take a swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the shrimp tank, doing big things, chasing big dreams. Yeah, it's all real, this life's all that it seems. All the chicks scream, all the dudes yell. This is just what I do, and I do it well. With the flow fresher than the new shoe smell. Going through hell, well homie, keep going. You know the saying, you gon' reap what you're sowing. So